And I'm going to introduce Sarah Beck. This is a really exciting session for me to be introducing. Oh, is somebody on, not on mute? That's gone. Yeah, I worked in the Northeast for 5 years as principal social worker, and I had the privilege of working with Sunderland University, being in Sunderland, and made really great relationships with the university and the staff there, and have been super supportive, not just to Sunderland, but also to all the local authorities in the region. And Sunderland were really quick off the mark to introduce the degree apprenticeship. And I was really lucky to be part of the early conversations. I still remember Sarah's 2 sides of A4 when she showed us the programme, and we said, this looks great because less is more, and it's just come on much further since then. And then I had the opportunity of meeting John, and he'll be introduced as one of the first degree apprenticeship apprentices, and a really moving and passionate social worker to be, and made me feel really proud of the profession and the route into that profession. So I'm here with friends, lots of familiar faces in our presenters, and yeah, feel really great to be back in the Northeast, and really proud that we can offer this to the rest of the sector as a really great piece of practice. So over to you, Sarah.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Catherine. It's so lovely to be introduced by Catherine, because she was part of the process really from the beginning. So it's absolutely great to be here this evening. Good evening, everybody. We're really pleased to be here. My name's Sarah Beck. I'm the Principal Lecturer Team Leader for the Applied Studies team at the University of Sunderland, and I'm also proud to be a registered social worker. And for the next hour or so, we're going to be reflecting on social work apprenticeship. Before I share my screen, I just want to say that I've come with a posse this evening. So I'm joined by colleagues from the university, including our social work apprenticeship programme leader, Julie. Perhaps you'd like to give a wave as I mention you. There's Julie. One of our apprentices, John, who I can't see on the... Oh, there he is. Yeah, there he is. There's John. Our co-educators, June and Sandra, who bring their lived experience of social work to the programme. And then we also have Margaret, who's one of our practice educators. And employer representatives Sally, Maureen and Sue. So we really have come as a posse, and I think that's really important. That's what this is all about this evening, really. And you'll hear from all of them one way or another this evening, and more of that in a little while. So I'll share my screen if I can now, so just bear with me while we get this up on the screen. Okay. Can you see that okay? Can somebody say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, right. First step succeeded. Okay, so this is us. And a very warm welcome, as I say. You can see on the screen there a picture of our lovely campus on the banks of the River Wear. And we haven't been there for a while, although we're hoping to be back very soon. But one of the good things I think that's come out of these challenging times that we've been in over the past year is that it's much easier to link up virtually right across the country and beyond. So it's great to be able to welcome you wherever you are. This evening. So when I first joined the University of Sunderland, which is about 3 years ago now, one of the first tasks I was given was to lead the development of our social work apprenticeship programme. And I have to be honest and say that 3 years ago, I knew very, very little. You could probably write it on the back of a postage stamp about apprenticeships. But my goodness, what a long way we've come since then. We've all learned a huge amount, and it's an ongoing process. We're still learning now, we're still developing. And that's really what the process that we want to share with you this evening. So I'm going to give you a very brief overview of social work apprenticeship and of how our programme has developed. And then for the main part of this session, we want to share with you a video that we've made reflecting on our experiences so far. And you'll see many of the faces that I introduced you to at the start in that video. And then hopefully, as Catherine said, there'll be some time at the end for some questions and discussion. And if you can just pop questions and comments in the chat as we go, that'll help us when we get to the end. So this really is a joint effort. And my colleagues have heard me say this probably more times than they care to remember, but this truly has been and is one of the best pieces of partnership working that I've ever been involved in. And we are unashamedly positive about apprenticeship as a model for social work education, alongside our traditional routes, our BA and MA programmes. So this is what we're going to do this evening. Hopefully share our experiences and give you a chance to have some discussion about the benefits and the challenges of this new route into social work. First of all, though, just a quick introduction to who some of our partners are. And just in case you're not quite sure where Sunderland is, it's here, up in the northeast of England, where we have a vibrant social work community and very, very close partnerships between local authorities in the region, but also between the 6 higher education institutions that provide social work education in the northeast. And those relationships really go back a very, very long way. But they were formalised a few years back when we became part of the Northeast Social Work Alliance, or NESWA as we call it, which is one of the largest social work teaching partnerships in the country. So we currently have apprentices from 9 local authority areas with us on the social work apprenticeship programme at the University of Sunderland. And you can see the names of those organisations on the screen there, and more are going to be joining us shortly. So the programme covers the whole of the North East region, from the border with Scotland in the north to Yorkshire in the south and Cumbria in the west. So that's us. So, what is social work apprenticeship? Well, we could easily spend the next hour or more talking about that alone. And I'm sure there's some people here who probably know quite a lot about this already, maybe others who know less. So what I'm going to do is just give you a really brief overview, but also point you in the direction of some resources to help you find out more if you'd like to. Apprenticeship is a new route into social work that was established nationally just a couple of years or so ago in 2018, when the social worker apprenticeship standard was approved by the Institute for Apprenticeships. And that's when we started developing our programme in partnership with local authority employers across our region. And the programme was approved by the university and by the HCPC, who was our regulator at the time, in 2019. And our first cohort of apprentices joined us in September 2019. You can see them there on the screen at the start of their apprenticeship adventure. And little did we know what was in store for us over the coming months. And we had a second cohort start with us the following year, and we now have 58 apprentices on the programme in total, and more joining us in September. So what is a social work apprentice? Well, our apprenticeship programme leads to an undergraduate degree and a professional qualification, just like our traditional undergraduate programme, but with a couple of important differences. Firstly, that apprentices are work-based learners. And this isn't a new idea in social work. Practice learning opportunities or placements are part of every qualifying social work course. And there's also examples of work-based programmes and what have been called grow your own schemes for many, many years. But apprenticeship is new and it's different. So apprentices are not only students, but they're also employees. And it's those two things absolutely bolted together that make an apprentice. An employee and a student learning 52 weeks a year on the job and off the job. So the apprentice isn't just doing a course 1 day a week at university, they're learning all the time. The other significant difference is financial. So the apprenticeship programmes are funded by the apprenticeship levy that all large employers pay into. And therefore, there's no direct cost for the programme to the employer or to the apprentice themselves. That's not to say it's without costs, but there's certainly financial advantages to the programme. And finally, to mention that apprentices are assessed not only against the professional capabilities framework for social work, but also against the social worker apprenticeship standard that sets out the knowledge, skills and behaviours that apprentices have to demonstrate over the course of the programme. So that's it in a nutshell. And I could go on, but I'm not going to. I've just added a couple of suggestions here of resources that you might like to have a look at if you want to find out more. The first one is the Social Worker Apprenticeship Standard that I mentioned, and the other two are very recent articles that have been published in the journal Social Work Education. So if you have access to that publication, they're really worth a look at. And we're hoping very much as time goes on that we'll be able to add to the body of published work in this area, and very, very hopeful that we'll be able to create some networks, maybe as an outcome from this session across the country in terms of how social work apprenticeships are developing. So one more thing before we get onto the video. I'm sure that some of you will have come across Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. It's normally presented as a pyramid, and the idea is that if we don't meet people's basic needs for food, water, safety, shelter, and so on, it's difficult, if not impossible, to meet other needs at a psychological level, never mind enabling people to meet their full potential. Well, when we were planning this presentation, one of our social work apprentices, Charlotte, who you'll see in the video later, came up with a new version of the hierarchy of needs, which is adapted to the needs of social work apprentices. And we all thought this was a great way to illustrate the journey of the apprentice from the beginning to the end of the programme, as they develop their knowledge, skills and values through learning both on the job and off the job, as you can see in the middle section of the letter A there, until they reach the top of the pyramid, the endpoint assessment, the final stage of any apprenticeship, where the apprentice has to demonstrate that they've met the requirements of the apprenticeship standard. And at that point, they reach the peak of the pyramid, where they're qualified and able to apply for registration with Social Work England and go on to practice as a social worker. However, none of that is possible without the foundations of the pyramid. Those basic needs right there at the bottom. There's some very practical things in there that the apprentices have identified in terms of what's needed. So salary, somewhere to study, time, an understanding of what they're setting out to achieve. But absolutely fundamental to the process is the very bottom layer there, and that's who's involved. It's the people. Every single one of those people is vital to the success of our programme, and I hope that will come across in the video that you're about to see. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Catherine, if I unshare my screen, if she will load up the video.
Sure.
And we'd like to show you our film.
Right.
So I'll just tell you a little bit about it while that's happening.
Brilliant.
So when we started planning this presentation, we'd planned that the video would be about 10 minutes maybe of the presentation, but this proved absolutely impossible because everybody had so much to say that we ended up with about, I don't know, 2 hours of footage, I think, altogether. We've managed to get it down into half an hour, just under half an hour. But as you'll see, this is a series of genuine conversations between people who are an integral part of our programme, and it's all in the participants' own words, and we think it captures the spirit of what the programme is all about. So I hope you enjoy it, and if we're ready to go, we look forward to sharing it with you. And as I say, please do continue to put some comments or questions in the chat as we go, and then after the video's finished, we'll have some time for a bit of discussion of some of the issues that have been raised. Thanks,
Brilliant.
Catherine.
Thanks, Sarah. So I'm going to press play. Can you just stay not on mute and just tell me it's working? And then Julie or Joe just put us all on mute. So I'll just press.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Right.
Catherine, we've lost the sound.
What I wanted to do, which was to take many many
Is that
years of
is that
experience in
okay?
social
It's
care,
back. Could we possibly
and
go
turned
back,
it into
Catherine?
the
Sure.
foundation on
Sorry,
which I feel that
sorry.
I've built.
I think when I'm on mute, it mutes the thing. So sorry about that. I'll just go back slightly.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
John, what do you think are the benefits of the social work apprenticeship and what's worked well so far?
So I would say who's involved and salary or finance. So for me, the benefit of still being an employee and therefore receiving a wage has been very important in allowing us to do what I wanted to do, which was to take many years of experience in social care and turn it into the foundation on which I feel that I've built my studies. I know from experience or from talking with fellow apprentices that that's not an experience that's unique to me, and that brings us on to the other need, which is who's involved. I mean, our tutors, our mentors, our practice educators, our employers, our co-educators are invaluable. But for me,
Yeah,
the experience of
absolutely.
learning from the other apprentices as well as alongside them has been amazing. There's so much experience amongst every single one of us.
I think, sorry to butt in, John, I think for me, it's that part of everybody comes from a very different, part of social work. We've got
Yeah,
a big mix of children's workers, but also the mixture of adult workers. And again, everybody's looking at it from a very different perspective. So when we all get chatting about things, the learning that comes from that, I love it. I think it's brilliant.
yeah. What do you think are the challenges that the apprenticeship or we as apprentices have faced so far?
So I think first of all, which has been huge, we can't, just ignore it, is COVID. Nobody was ever expecting there to be a pandemic, let alone one as we started doing our apprenticeship. So thinking about what we've mentioned in terms of the hierarchy of needs, the largest part of that challenge has probably been things related to the psychological side of it. Our learning has had to change. And it's changed quite drastically, to be honest. So we've gone from having face-to-face lessons to now having virtual learning. And it is quite difficult. You get your internet will drop off one minute, and you've missed something in the chat the next. So it is hard keeping up with that. Um, but I think alongside that, it's trying to juggle life. We're juggling academics, we're juggling writing assignments, family life, work life, everything. But and that is a challenge, and I know we're all finding it difficult, but I suppose everybody else is finding it hard, in other fields too. I think as well, just having the space to reflect and actually look back on practice and think about the things that we've been learning, that can be quite difficult, not only in terms of just thinking about where we do it and when we can do it,
Yeah.
because you know it's hard fitting that time in, but sometimes employers can struggle to see you as an apprentice because you're an employee. The it's just a bit difficult trying to piece it together sometimes to get what you actually need, in terms of being an apprentice. And reflection, it's one of the biggest parts of it, 'cause that's where we do a lot of our learning. I think it's important to say each local authority has adopted their own approach to the apprenticeship, so it's run quite differently depending where you are. The study side of it and the academic side is, it's very much the same, but in terms of employment, it is different. And yeah, I think some employers have got quite a good grasp of the role and they know what's needed, whereas others it's just taken a little bit longer.
I think an overriding theme amongst from people I spoke to and feedback that we've had is that the university and namely the lecturers have been exceptional in ensuring that our academic the academic aspect of the apprenticeship continues, and we still continue to get excellent quality learning opportunities in the classroom, albeit remotely, for a lot of the time that we've been on the apprenticeship. Aside from COVID, the benefit of being able to get support from not just the university but your employer, and that's like through the duration of the course, because you know, we have both. Like, a lot of us are doing our placements at the minute, and that's something that other routes will experience through doing placements. But we have the beauty of both throughout the duration. So, you know, for example, if you were having a difficult time in your personal life or in your life in general, you could see support from the University Wellbeing Service and from occupational health. So that's a massive thing. And having becoming a mature student, I didn't have a degree, it was quite daunting. Having a mentor at work and a tutor at uni, and being able to engage with them and us engage together in tripartite meetings and be able to apply the workplace to the classroom and the classroom to the workplace, has made it a lot less daunting and a lot more enjoyable, and I love it.
I am the same as you, John. I've really enjoyed the experience. You know, it has come with challenges, but I think everything's been challenging, especially over the last year. But the apprenticeship, I agree with what you said, the support, you know, it's fantastic.
If you would offer any advice to potential social work apprentices in the future, what would that be?
I mean, I just want to say, everybody, yeah, just go for it, do it. But no, I think you need to be prepared. You know, it's a lot of work that's required into it. You need to, you know, have a plan, and you know, be very focused on what needs to be done. In terms of, you know, knowing when you're going to write assignments, what days you are going to take your annual leave to look after yourself. But yeah, take the opportunity. If you can, you're going to gain a professional qualification in social work. But at the same time, I think recognising your own strengths and the wealth of knowledge and experiences that you've already got, and it's about being prepared to, you know, share them with other people. Because especially for us, we've done so much of our learning through the discussions with the other learners, and it's been invaluable.
I heard a little bit about the course, and I saw it as being a really good challenge for the university to take on this apprenticeship course. And I also thought it was an excellent way of opening up to those who were already working in the social care departments, had experience, but had never previously had the opportunity to consider a degree course. So I just saw it as being an excellent opportunity. I was very privileged to be involved with the HCPC assessment. I considered it a great privilege to be part of that. It was slightly daunting on the day. It was very formal, as of course it had to be, but we, as service users, we faced the panel and answered their questions relating to the part that we had played in both the MA and BA courses.
We were able to put across how we've been part of the programmes before, and we all did have a chance to say what we needed to say. And because we've felt part of a team and kind of co-educators, then we felt that we were able to confidently say that we thought that this would be a good thing for the university, and that the involvement side would be well done, as it has been done in the past. So and has continued to be, both with the the BAs, the MAs, and the apprenticeship scheme.
If you can remember when we started the apprenticeship a couple of years ago, you were involved in the World Cafe event. Could you give some feedback into that?
Yeah, really, this was a first, so no one quite knew what to expect. World Cafe, it sounded quite exciting, and there were a lot of people at the event, a lot of the co-educators, and obviously all of the apprentices. The apprentices were kind of a little apprehensive at returning to the world of learning. So it was good for them to be able to meet up with academics as well as the service users in a very informal setting. We split into groups, and it gave the apprentices the opportunity to question service users about their role and their involvement with the other courses, with the MA and the BA courses. And as I say, although they were well qualified in their current roles and used to experiencing difficult situations, I think it helped them to recognise and understand the scope of the course, because obviously they were very focused on their own particular roles. So, you know, quite possibly in the current position, they would be considered experts in the field and set in their ways. But I think there was a realization from this event that they'd have to adapt and develop new skills. But everybody was completely at ease. It was very informal. And the feedback we got was very positive, and the service users' participation was very much appreciated by them. But sadly, this year, because of obviously restrictions, we didn't have the opportunity to meet on campus, but we weren't beaten, and we had to meet the apprentices on a team session.
Yeah, I remember that day. It was quite chaotic. It felt at first, just because there were so many people in one room, and it was kind of, you know, who's in which group type thing. But you know, that was all part of the fun of it. We all sat at different tables, and people came round and discussed issues with us as service users, and it was really good that I think they got a better understanding why service users are involved on the course, but also that realization that service users aren't just people that need sorting out and looking after and a problem to be solved, but can actually be a very useful part in their teaching and learning and development within their field. So they might be used to speaking to service users on one level, but this was getting them used to speaking to service users on a different level, where they could understand our role as part of the team. It's been a really interesting process, and to know that, to recognise the differences between the students, but recognising that all students, whatever route they're going on, while things may need to be tailored differently for them, they can all learn from us as service users. And I think it's good that we can be part of each route that's available to people.
Really, this has been a win-win process all around. Having, you know, watched the students go through the interview process and the World Cafe event, assessed interviews and the teaching sessions, they've actually shown a lot of enthusiasm and determination, which I think this confirms it's a brilliant route to those who have a passion for social work, but would not have been in a position to return to full-time education. It's a win for the university to be involved at this early stage of the course. And I think it's been a win for all the co-educators, because the apprentices have shown a lot of appreciation for all our involvement on the course. So, you know, a great all round.
I was really pleased when I was asked to be involved in the first of all in the development stage of the apprenticeship, and to be programme leader. because I've got such a passion for this route into social work, and I think that stems from my own professional experience. I was an assessment officer for a number of years in a local authority, and I would have loved the opportunity to do this when I came into social work. And I can relate to some of the enthusiasm that the apprentices have as well, and how they say that they're lucky to have been chosen for this particular route, and I know I certainly would have loved to do it in that particular way. From a teaching perspective, I think I've seen lots and lots of experience in one room. It's just absolutely amazing, and that they can draw on that experience from whatever service they've been in. And again, going back to how I can relate to that, even some of the interview processes when we had the interviews for the first cohort and the second cohort, was when we asked the question, why do you want to be a social worker? And some of the applicants were saying, well, I do the job anyway. And I think, yeah, that was me. I thought I was doing the job of a social worker until I came to university and started unpicking some of the things that I was actually doing. And you can see that, and sometimes it's almost that light bulb moment where when they start to think about things different, and start to use different language, and start to get to grips with theory and skills. And you can really see that in the tripartite meetings as well, when you're asking the mentor or their employer, have you noticed a difference? And they certainly have, from the actual hands-on practical side of it, but also the reflection that they're doing in their supervision as well. I just really wanted to make a comment about how much we've learned, or certainly how much I've learned from the apprentices as well. I was teaching communication skills just as the first lockdown happened last year. And apart from the initial adrenaline rush and how are we actually going to do that, it was a really wonderful experience for us both, for both sides as well, because I found out from them what it was like changing their working environment to be in a virtual platform, and how they were creative in developing those communication skills, how they used the skills that they actually had to support service users and the people that they worked with. And what I've been able to do is to take that and put it into the development of communication skills module for this year, not only for the apprentices, but also for the traditional route students as well. So I really am grateful for that. And like I say, that the learning experience has been twofold, and helps us develop the programme in the future.
That point about the practice context links to something else that I think we've all noticed in teaching the apprentices, which is the experience that they bring into the classroom every time we have a teaching session with them. They bring in examples from their day-to-day practice that they can use within teaching, and then they take their teaching back into the workplace and they can apply it immediately. And so you've got a really effective cycle of learning that's going on all the time. And I think there's something about the immediacy of that practice experience that is really beneficial to their learning. And we've seen them. We've been saying it's, we can see them like sponges soaking up the knowledge in the classroom, to the extent that sometimes when we were in the classroom in person last year, it was difficult to get people to leave at the end of the day, because they're so interested and so keen to learn.
Yes, and I would just like to follow up on that, really, in terms of the practice educator experience, because certainly I feel it's been a real pleasure and a privilege to work with the apprentices. Some people started off a bit nervous, about theory into practice, but then in a very short space of time that was dispelled, because they realised all of this vast experience they had made it more ready for them to soak up and apply, really, their theory into practice. And then it wasn't so long before they were bringing the theory to me, and really wanting to embrace it, and really being very holistic, really, in their approach, which I thought was absolutely excellent. But the main thing for me, I suppose, that I've really enjoyed, and the apprentices, I think this has been such a positive for them, is what I would call sort of double reflection. They're reflecting on the work that they did prior to placement, which was their substantive post. And then they're reflecting on their current placement and the situations that they're facing there. And they're sort of weaving the two together. So sometimes in supervision, they'd be talking actively, of course, of case examples here and now, but they'd then be bringing in, as I say, the double reflection. They're looking back at some of their previous experience, and then they're using that not only to inform current, but they're going to use that when they go back to their substantive posts. So to me, that was quite a big embedding, really, of their learning and experience. But also, I think it's a bit like money in the bank. It's sort of when they go back, they've got this extra storage of things that they've already sort of taken on board and have internalized. Even though I was experienced, I felt I had to really think and prepare even more carefully than I would normally about what was the level of learning and work that I was actually sort of trying to embrace with them. I didn't want it to be too low level, that they thought it was like, you know, too basic. But on the other hand, I didn't want to presume knowledge that they didn't have. So obviously it was a very two-way process about getting that level right. But it is quite a challenge, I think, in some senses, for practice educators to prepare appropriately in that sense. I think the other challenge is for apprentices when they actually go back into their substantive post. I think apprentices have a great loyalty to the organisation that's obviously supporting them. Many have been there for over 15 years and are well known within their councils. And I think the challenge really when they go back is sometimes, for example, as we know in the current situation with COVID and other pressures, sometimes we do have teams depleted in numbers because of perhaps sickness or people taking holidays. And I think apprentices would be the first people to put their hands up and go, oh, I'll do that piece of work extra, or I'll cover that extra duty slot for you. And I think sometimes they might do that at the cost of perhaps their own learning and still seeing themselves as a learner in situ.
The mentor provides that consistent support person throughout the journey from becoming a very new apprentice through to qualification. It can be a very flexible role. I'm more of a long arm mentor because I sit in workforce development. So it means I have contact with those people who are providing work placements to our apprentices. And I think what has really helped latterly is that the university have helped us strengthen our understanding of what the mentor role would be. One of the important aspects is that recognition that our apprentices are moving from being an expert in where they previously were employed to being a novice in becoming a new apprentice. And I think that really helped me understand that it's okay to go right back to basics in terms of the role of the social worker. And for me personally, it's been a quite refreshing thing really to get to see what they're learning, to look at the academic modules. Mentors do need to have a full understanding of what that course entails, and to be available. Obviously, when they have their practice educators, when they're on placement, mentors can step back a little bit, but they know that we're always there, and if required, we can take on a variety of roles from support to advocate to listening ear, and all of that is really important for them. And all I would add was, if anybody was, any of the social workers there were thinking about taking on the mentor role, I would actively encourage them to do so in terms of contributing to their continuous professional development and getting a real good understanding of the apprentice programme, which hopefully is going to programme that's going to be here to stay, and we'll have more apprentices within our workforce. As an employer, it's really given us the opportunity to attract a wider pool of candidates into social work training, and because these are already employees of the council, we've already got that commitment to perhaps staying within the workforce and promoting the resilience of them within that setting. It allows us to be a bit smarter about our workforce planning, because we're more confident at the end of the degree course we'll have qualified social workers already within the workforce, and we can look at where they're going to be best placed. I think one of the other significant benefits as well is removes the barrier of the financial cost to taking on board social work training. So, for example, if you're a parent, or you have a mortgage, or you really would love to do your social work training but just can't balance the books, if you like, then this is a scheme that allows us to attract those more older, slightly resilient candidates who have work experience, and for them not to be financially penalised for that, basically, and just to concentrate on their learning.
I think it's a great opportunity to afford staff where they maybe don't think they've necessarily had all of the academic qualifications they've needed to do it in the past. You know, we're able to support them as an employer to have them ready to make that step. Because they might not have had that opportunity.
Definitely. And in addition, they usually have been in whatever their existing posts were. They've seen firsthand what the role of the social worker is. So their first placement isn't their first experience of what the job actually entails. They've worked alongside social workers in child in need meetings, in child protection conferences. So that's meant that they've seen it from both sides. And they're coming in with a fairly realistic understanding of what a difficult job it can be to become a social worker.
Absolutely, and I think you've touched on it already around resilience. I think it actually is demonstrating that their resilience is being tested, particularly because those that have been on programme for a couple of years have had undertaken a degree in the normal world and then the not so normal world. So, as an employer, how we've been able to support them to do that. And that's been in working in very close conjunction with the university.
I think we've been very fortunate in forging such a strong partnership with the university. When I look back to meetings we originally had to bring together 12 local authorities in a regional partnership to be part of a very new scheme in terms of what it would entail. And I think what's been key is the open communication, problem solving, the participation, and the kind of generally we want to make this work and we want to help you make it work. So that I think has been a real strength in terms of it's becoming a more mature partnership now. And it's mutually beneficial to the employer and the university, so it's kind of and the apprentices, so it's very much a win all round. I think what's worked really well for us is that right from the beginning we've had engagement and buy-in at all levels. So from our senior strategic managers to our HR representatives to our mentors, practice educators, that everybody has felt engaged in the process, feels they have a voice, feels they can contribute. We have active meetings with our mentors, with our apprentices, to make sure we have that two-way feedback, because it is still a very new programme and we're all still learning, but we're all actively engaged in that learning. And I think in terms of the partnership approach between both within the employers organisation and certainly between the employers and the university, has been really beneficial and has worked really well.
I would like to echo that, and I suppose if I was actually going to summarise it, and I'm quite a visual person, I would say having an apprentice who goes through the social work degree is like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. You have to have all of the parts. You have to have the edge put in place first. So that was our stakeholder meetings, that was consultation, that was communication. And then you have to pop the pieces in to actually bring that visualization, that picture that pops out from it. And that's, as you say, Maureen, it's actually having buy-in both up and down within the organisation. So the apprentice commitment, the mentor support and involvement, workforce development lead, the principal social worker, and obviously your strategic managers, to see the benefit of having an apprentice and actually how that really drives forward succession planning and internal growth and promotion of your staff and workforce within an organisation.
That was great, Sarah. Really slick video, and nice to see many of my colleagues as movie stars. So, but no, some really great content. We've got 10 minutes left. So we've had one question in the chat, but it might be just easier to do the hands up process. And I suppose maybe just to kick it off, I don't know how many people listened to Peter Brailsford this morning, but made some really interesting comments about routes into social work, and yeah, and sort of quite you know, thought-provoking, definitely. So I suppose it would be just a question about that sort of you know, how does this sit within all the different routes into social work?
I don't know who would like to answer that. I feel like I've said quite a lot, so I don't know if anybody else wants to come in. I'm happy to. If shall I kick off, and if anybody wants to join in. I mean, I think what, as far as we're concerned, we see this as one route amongst many, and I think it's really important to recognise that people bring different things to the different routes. So, you know, so this is a route that is ideal for people who've got a lot of experience working in social care, and you know, who are maybe a bit further along in their career, if you like, and perhaps who haven't followed the traditional path in terms of education, and you know, as I say, it's difficult because we do have lots of very experienced people join our traditional route programs as well, and we've been very keen from the start not to set this apart as something completely different. It's a pre-qualifying course, just the same as the MA and BA courses. So people come out with the undergraduate degree as well as the professional qualification. It's the academic level is exactly the same, but one of the things we've been very keen to do is to try and open it up in terms of widening participation in higher education. The idea is behind apprenticeships generally is that they should be used to encourage people in who perhaps wouldn't traditionally have come into higher education, and I think that's been a real positive. So we have a sort of tiered admissions process where people may be considered for admission without the full number of academic points that we would expect from our traditional route. I don't know if any of the employers want to come in maybe about this.
I would completely agree, Sarah. It's about recognising that we're keen to broaden the width of our people coming into social work. So it's valuing each route in a different sort of way, and just looking at how that benefits the profession as a whole.
I would echo what Maureen's just said, and say from an employer's perspective, it's enabled us to kind of think at what steps do we actually need to ready staff before they consider it, and actually look at kind of new training and development as a prerequisite to then take that step onto that, whereas they maybe have not been able to consider that outside before.
Mm-hmm.
Sue, did you want to?
Yes, just to build upon that, what's really beneficial about the apprenticeship route is that if you have a degree in a similar discipline, or points, UCAS points, you can actually go straight into year 2. So in terms of for some of the staff or for some of the apprentices, that has been an option, which is really interesting for some individuals as well.
We've got one hand up, but we've got a question here which I think is sort of linked. How are the different routes perceived by others? So is there like oh well, it's an apprenticeship route, it's not as good? Is any? From
an employer's perspective, I think it's how you sell it. It's about putting that kind of enthusiasm into the way that you sort of share the information with staff. I know in my authority, you know, we actually were quite positive. We used a lot of visual techniques. We engaged staff through sort of briefing sessions to actually sort of demonstrate the value and put it kind of on that equitable playing field.
Brilliant.
And to add to that, Sally, I think what's really important is that what was discussed in the video about that kind of the first experience in the apprenticeship route isn't the only experience, and that there's so much invaluable transferable skill that actually it's a almost a reverse mentor learning. We learn from the apprentices, and vice versa. So it's an excellent route, and it's no less than any other route into social work, for sure.
Brilliant. I'm going to come to Jerry. We've only got 5 minutes, so if we can get Jerry, she's got her hand up.
Yes, hi. It was just a comment actually, because I'm not actually in employment now. I've retired at the end of November. Yes. But I was line manager to somebody who was on the first year of apprenticeship training, and I just wanted to add a comment of how valuable it is for the whole team when somebody goes on to the training, and how much energy she brought into the team and gave presentations, and just the informal chat within the office about her learning really lifted everybody, and I think helped not only her fellow social care practitioners but also qualified social workers to yes, just to revisit basic principles and get a bit more up to date on theory and stuff as well. It was just a whole team value, really.
That's a really positive comment and really great, and probably a really great place to end, I guess. Unless anybody's got any more burning questions.
I think Julie was just on the point of speaking before. I don't know whether the moment's passed or whether you want to, want to say something,
It was just to add about the different routes, and just to reiterate that the module content is pretty much in line with the BA traditional route in the social work. So the modules and the themes and the topics and the issues are exactly the same, just on a more condensed aspect to it as well.
We were very keen for it not to be seen as a second-class academic qualification, and there's a balance there. I think somebody asked in the chat. There's a balance there between widening participation, and recognizing that actually, that people do need a certain level of academic ability to be able to manage an undergraduate degree program. So we don't want to set people up to fail. And so we spend a lot of time early on in the programme making sure that we're supporting people to develop those academic skills, so they can work at that level. So it's a balance.
Brilliant. I get a sense we could have done with another half an hour with this, but it is just a couple of minutes to 7. And it just remains for me to really, thank you all for your time. It's been a really great and informative session. I guess there might have been a few queries in the chat about being able to make contact, but Sarah's email address, was it on the presentation, or are you happy for people to make contact?
Yeah, very happy.
Brilliant.
It's not on the presentation, but do you want me to pop it into the chat?
Would you mind? I think
It's on the website. People will be able to find it. But I'll pop it in.
That'd be great. That would be really good. Because I think if there was any questions, I'm sure Sarah would be able to field those alongside her colleagues. So yeah, thank you all so much for your time. I'm real, advocate for the degree apprenticeship. I think it's been a really great offer, and we're interested in terms of Social Work England to be definitely keeping an eye. Their degree apprenticeship approval is exactly the same as any other approval for our HEI courses, so we're very engaged in that as the regulator. So thank you all for attending the session. It's a big ask on a Thursday night, as I said, and we're really pleased that you put this time aside to be with us. Julie or Joe will have put the evaluation in the chat. Please encourage you just to fill it in. It is really important to us to hear what you've got to say. And keep going in terms of sessions with Social Work England week, the Social Work Week. There is spaces left on some of the sessions tomorrow, and you can use this as your CPD as well. So win-win there. So sad to be leaving you in the Northeast, but we'll hopefully be back together reasonably soon. And take care, everybody. Have a good evening.